justice, temperance, wisdom, courage. Applying ancient philosophy to modern times, this is the Sunday Stoic.
So why do we talk about philosophy? I mean, of all things, in this day and age, right? I started looking into philosophy, into Stoicism, just around December of 2016. I went to a bookstore. They had just opened a bookstore in my town here in Arkansas, and I saw a book by a guy named Marcus Aurelius, and I knew the name either from Latin class in high school or maybe it was from the movie Gladiator. And I flipped through it. It was called Meditations. That also caught my eye as I had recently looked into mindfulness meditation. And I thought it looked really interesting, but I put it back on the shelf. Then a few days later, I forget exactly how, but Meditations came up again, and it caught my eye again, and I thought, okay, it's something to do with Stoicism. Because I looked up the book to find out more about it, and I saw, okay, Stoicism, I've heard of that, but I don't know anything about it. Then I saw there were books by modern people who were practicing this philosophy. So I checked out William Irvine's Guide to the Good Life from the library, and that was my introduction. And I highly recommend that book to anyone wanting to get started exploring Stoicism. And in it he says, it doesn't matter what philosophy you choose, but pick one to help guide your life to live a happy life. It gives you, philosophy gives you a guide to how to live, even more so than a lot of, religion does. Religion kind of focuses on the afterlife and, trying to get there or whatever. Stoicism focuses on getting over fears, living a good life, whether you be religious or not, and it's worth looking into. I think of it as a way to align your life to avoid inconsistencies. It helps you to self-evaluate and see, oh wait, I'm way off track here from what my beliefs are. I think this is true, but I'm not acting on it in these parts of my life. It's a way to avoid being inconsistent and then to start applying consistency to your life and apply ideas to your life that will improve your life, make you happier in the long run. Helping people out, making sure you're working on being a wise person, a brave person, things that you otherwise might just ignore. You might hold the door open for someone behind you in the grocery store, and that's the extent of your good deeds for the day, but we're trying to do better than that. So we're going to hear from a few philosophers today and have a little discussion at the end. I'm glad I got this episode up and out because my little boy has been sick and I've been really busy. And I think next month, starting in July, I'm going to do shorter episodes. Instead of 3 readings, I may focus on 1, maybe 2, and we're going to focus on individual philosophers for a bit. So I think July will be the month of Epictetus. And we're going to look at some of his important thoughts. So we'll focus on Epictetus in July, and then we'll move on to Seneca and Marcus Aurelius later, and do a month for each of them as well. If you're violently opposed to this idea, feel free to let me know at sundaystoic@gmail.com. Likewise, if you'd like to read for the show, email me, sundaystoic@gmail.com. All right, so we're going to hear from our 3 main Stoic philosophers today, and we have a guest reader as well, so let's get to it.
Moral Letters to Lucilius, Letter 23, on the true joy which comes from philosophy, verses 2, 3, 5, and 6. We have reached the heights if we know what it is that we find joy in, and if we have not placed our happiness in the control of externals. The man who is goaded ahead by hope of anything, though it be within reach, though it be easy of access, and though his ambitions have never played him false, is troubled and unsure of himself. Above all, my dear Lucilius, make this your business. Learn how to feel joy. The yield of poor minds is on the surface. Those are really rich whose veins lurk deep, and they will make more bountiful returns to him who delves unceasingly. So too, those baubles which delight the common crowd afford but a thin pleasure laid on as a coating, and even joy that is only plated lacks a real basis. But the joy of which I speak, that to which I am endeavoring to lead you, is something solid, disclosing itself the more fully as you penetrate into it. Therefore I pray to you, my dear Lucilius, do the one thing that can render you really happy. Cast aside and trample underfoot all the things that glitter outwardly and are held out to you by another or as obtainable from another. Look towards the true good and rejoice only in that which comes from your own store. And what do I mean by from your own store? I mean from your very self, that which is the best part of you. The frail body, also, even though we can accomplish nothing without it, is to be regarded as necessary rather than as important. It involves us in vain pleasures, short-lived and soon to be regretted, which, unless they are reined in by extreme self-control, will be transformed into the opposite. This is what I mean. Pleasure, unless it has been kept within bounds, tends to rush headlong into the abyss of sorrow.
The Thoughts of Marcus Aurelius, Chapter 5, Verse 9, a paraphrase. Be not disgusted, nor discouraged, nor dissatisfied, if you do not succeed in doing everything according to the right principles. But when you fail, return back again, and be content if most of what you have done is according to nature. Do not return to philosophy as if she is your master, but act like those who have sore eyes, and apply a bit of sponge and egg, or as another applies a plaster, or drenching it with water. Then you will not fail to obey reason. You will find rest in it. Remember that philosophy only requires what nature requires, but you often want something that is not according to nature. Why is this? What's better than magnanimity, freedom, simplicity, equanimity, and piety? What is more agreeable than wisdom itself? The Enchiridion by Epictetus, number 46, a paraphrase. Never call yourself a philosopher, nor talk a great deal among laymen about theorems, but always act conformably to them. Thus, at a party, don't talk about how persons should eat, but eat as you should. Remember that it is this way that Socrates also universally avoided ostentation, and when persons came to him and desired to be recommended by him to philosophers, he took them, recommended them to other philosophers, and was also then usually overlooked. So if you happen to be somewhere talking to someone about philosophy, be for the most part silent, for there is a great danger in immediately throwing out what you have not digested. And if anyone tells you that you are a know-nothing, then you can be sure that you have begun your business. For sheep do not throw up the grass just to show the shepherd how much they have eaten, but they digest their food. They outwardly produce the wool and the milk. Thus, do likewise. Do not show theorems to the unlearned, but show them the actions produced by them after they have been digested. So in the first reading by Seneca, read by Christy Turgison, thank you for your reading, he reminds us once again, common theme here, don't put your hope in externals. But it is our business to try to feel joy, a happy, deep, long-lasting joy. Not the kind of joy you get when, your favorite team wins the World Series or whatever, or you get that big box of donuts or that bag of cocaine or whatever it may be. Not the kind of joy that brings happiness to the crowds, but is like a firecracker. It's exciting for a second and then it's gone. We're talking about long-lasting joy, and he says this comes from within. These are the joys we're cultivating through the study of philosophy. The joys that come from being virtuous. And so he reminds us that the body is necessary, for example, to get through life, right? If you don't have a body, you're dead. But you want to tend to the body, but you don't want to give it every pleasure that it desires. If we had unlimited resources, just to think how gluttonous we could easily be, lying around all day, doing nothing important except eating, and other carnal pleasures, and even if we don't have the means to satisfy all the pleasures our body desires, we definitely lead a very hedonistic life for the most part. It's like, ooh, I want this. Get on Amazon, order it. Ooh, I want a candy bar. Candy bar. Ooh, I could use some beer. And then, we chase one pleasure after the next. Epicurus, not a Stoic, obviously, but he states that, if you don't keep your desires in check, then it's a unending horizon. You're always sailing towards that next pleasure. You never reach a destination. But if you keep your desires within check, you can be happy and satisfied. If you allow philosophy to be your dominant pleasure, basically, improving yourself rather than eating, drinking, and things like that. So pleasures of the body, if left unchecked, lead to sorrow. And I think that is something we can relate to. We don't want to be super prudish here, right? But if you are just constantly going out and drinking too much, eating too much, these all lead to sorrow. These lead to problems, both of the soul and of the body. Marcus Aurelius then has a very lovely quote here where he says, we're going to screw up when we're trying to be good people, trying to live a stoic life. We're going to mess up. We're going to drink a little too much. We're going to get mad at somebody. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But come back to philosophy. But don't come to it with your tail between your legs and coming to it and like a slave to a master and expecting to be whipped by philosophy. Come to it instead like someone in the boxing ring with a black eye. And, philosophy is like the cold steak you lay on your eye. It's there to soothe you, to help you get over it, to help you come back as a better person. So he said it's like applying a plaster. It's like putting a Band-Aid on it. It's here to help us heal and move on as a better person, not to beat ourselves up. So we want to live life simply. We want to live life happily. And that's our goal, to live a good, happy, simple life. I know there was a family friend. They were in their 90s. They knew my great-grandpa, and we would go visit them. And they had a farmhouse with some rocking chairs in it, a couple pieces of furniture, some pictures of their grandkids, and very little else in the house. And I don't know why, but that just seems really nice and tempting from time to time when I'm tripping over crap in my house or, trying to find room for things. How nice it would be to live simply and happily. Focus on the things that matter. And when you mess up, you come back to philosophy. You say, I'm going to do better tomorrow, and you move on. And then lastly, in the Enchiridion, we have Epictetus saying that, once again, as he likes to say, if you're a philosopher, if you're studying this, trying to be a better person, don't go around telling everybody how you're going to be a better person, all the stuff you're going to learn. You don't want to just go blah, 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 blah about it. You want to live it. And we've talked about this before. The same thing appears in like the Bible where it says, to not hide your lamp under a basket, but to let it shine. And in this case, it doesn't mean to go talk about it, but it means to have everyone see you and say, wow, what's that person's secret? He or she does all this work. They're such a good person. I never seen them get mad. They're helping with charity all the time. They're nice to other people. They seem to be really wise, all of this stuff. And then if they ask you your secret, maybe you'll tell them, well, I study philosophy. Maybe it's not Stoicism. Maybe it is. But you've picked a way to live and to confine your desires and to build happiness, and you're living that life. And that's a very respectable thing. So he says, don't just shout out you're a philosopher to everybody running around bragging about it. Just like a lamb doesn't throw up its meal to the farmer to prove it's been eating. Instead, it eats the grass, turns it into wool that the farmer can see and appreciate. The same way, that's how we want to bring in philosophy. Bring it in, think about it, internalize it, make it a part of ourselves. And then he says, show them the actions produced by your philosophy. So live the life that your philosophy dictates rather than just being a showboater or a talker. One thing I like about this statement is I've heard it said by actual philosophers, people who study this, that, well, Stoicism is a